It's the 1st of May. That means there's a whole new month of reading coming up. I had a particularly good month in April in terms of quality, and for me also quantity in a way. I did read quite a lot, but most importantly, I read Brothers Karamazov, which was an amazing read. I read some short stories by Flaubert that impressed me very much. I read some Cormac McCarthy. I had a great month, but I'm also think I have some pretty exciting things ongoing now for May. I have started reading Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It's my first Bronte that I will be reading. I'm about 150 pages in. I'm actually reading it in this Folio Society edition, but it doesn't really have a cover, so I thought I'd show you this one instead. And I really, really, really like it so far. Perhaps I don't love it to the extent of right now I can't see this becoming like a like a just blow me away type of novel, 5-star novel. It could happen, but so far I would say this is solidly a 4-star, potentially 4.5. That's where I am with it right now. It's quite an engrossing read, and it's a very interesting novel. The prose perhaps is just a little bit dry at times. Like Charlotte writes it very formally and very descriptive, and I think that it lacks a bit of the dramatic tension. It's very Dickensian in especially in the beginning, in sort of theme of poverty and orphans and social injustice, but without the melodrama of Charles Dickens, and I do appreciate that. But it also doesn't really have the energy that a Dostoevsky novel has. So, but it is very, very, very good, and it's a first-person narrative, which I sometimes struggle with. But I think when done in the way that Charlotte Bronte does it here, it works very well. It's told, you know, as a memoir backwards looking in the past tense, first person narrative. We're not told how old she is when she recollects the story of her childhood and adolescence, but we are led to believe that she's at least quite a bit older. But when she talks about her childhood and her experience growing up and being sent off to Lowood what's it called, a charity school, something like that. She's mixing in, when she's recollecting especially important moments, she's giving up the past tense and she's sort of mixing in present tense, which makes it more interesting and sort of makes the reader feel like we're being carried into the narrative and experiencing it in real time, even though it is a recollection of a past memory. And the first thing I noticed when I was reading the beginning of this was just, and this may not be any news to anyone other than me, but can we just appreciate how the background of Jane Eyre has basically been nicked by J.K. Rowling for Harry Potter? I mean, she's 10 years old, same age as Harry is when we get to know him on the evening before his 11th birthday. She's an orphan. Her parents are dead. She doesn't remember them, doesn't know them. She lives with her aunt. She lives with her aunt and uncle, although her uncle has died. Just like Harry, and just like Harry Potter, her aunt in particular is extremely venomous towards her, hates her, shuns her, scolds her, and with great injustice punishes her for what her old, spoiled, insolent children does. And that whole tone of the way Mrs. Reed speaks to Jane is exactly as Aunt Petunia speaks to Harry. She also isolates her. She doesn't want her own children to have anything to do with her. And she lives in a closet, in a cupboard. I mean, come on, it's Harry Potter. So I thought that was rather funny and amusing. And yeah, 150 pages in, I read the first part. It's mostly a realistic tale, and then there's a mix, sort of a bit of a mixing of some gothic, uncanny eeriness that just suddenly happens, where Jane wakes up and she hears a voice, and some unexplained stuff happens around the incident where the fire happens in the house, and Mr. Rochester's room. The curtains is on fire, and she basically saves him. Um, and it's not really clear if this is something that is really happening, or whether this is something that is in the mind of Jane. And stuff like that is when a first person narrative actually really works well, because when the author, like Charlotte does in Jane Eyre, plays around with the fact that a first person narrator is always to some extent unreliable. Like if you take an historical account and you read 5 different individual persons, um, you know, descriptions of how that event happened, you'll get 5 different stories. Everyone experiences things differently. So a good first person narrative gives you as the reader this feeling that we are seeing things not as they are, but as they appear to Jane. Maybe as they honestly appear to her, or as she thinks about it when she looks back from much later and recollects the memory, or maybe as she wants them to be. Who knows? But it's when an author plays around with the first person narrative like that and does it well, I think it works. And it's a great story. I like it very much. Just a bit dry, just a little bit dry. Um, I have some other stuff that I will hopefully get around to in May. I need to get around to this one because it's a library hold. So this is in Danish, but this is Solveig Balles om udregning af rumfang, or in English, on the calculation of volume, version 1. And I feel obliged to read this because it's not that often that there is a Danish author in the zeitgeist as much as this one is right now, as a Groundhog Day type of novel. That's basically all I know about it. It's short, so I'm pretty sure I'll get around to that. Then I will also hopefully continue with my Cormac McCarthy project to read everything by Cormac McCarthy. And I'm not doing it in chronological order because I started with Blood Meridian, then I read The Road, then I read the Border trilogy, then I read No Country for Old Men. Somewhere along those lines, somewhere, I think after The Road, I also read The Orchid Keeper. So now, as I finished No Country for Old Men, I want to go back and then pick up from after The Orchid Keeper, and then read chronologically through the ones that I haven't read so far. And that means the next one is Outer Dark. Then I also want to continue my Dostoevsky project, but after Brothers Karamazov, I've read the 4 big ones, you can say. The 5th big one, if you want to call it that, is Devils, and I have that, but that's rather long. So I think I will read the double, which I has in this volume here with the Underground Man. Notes from the Underground, yeah. Which I read last year, but I never read the double. So I think I will read this as well. And then, other than that, I have my 2 ongoing projects that will be throughout the year as well, and that will continue. And that is to read the King James Bible. I haven't read more since I finished the Karamazov Brothers, but the next chapter of the Bible that I'll get to is the Book of Exodus. Again, I'm not doing it necessarily chronologically, if you want to call it that, because I've been jumping around a bit to fit the thematics of the Karamazov Brothers. I read the Gospels, I read Genesis and Book of Job. But I think I'll continue maybe chronologically through the Old Testament and chronologically through the New Testament, but sort of reading a chapter here, a chapter there from those 2 parts of the Bible. And then my last ongoing big project that will probably last all through the year is this nonfiction, Dawn to the West by Donald Keene, a literary history of Japanese lit- a history of Japanese literature in the modern era. Um, this is a great nonfiction work, and it's an amazing volume for fans of Japanese literature. And what I read of it so far is amazing. I've read about 200 pages, 250 pages. I'm reading it chronologically, but there is different chapters for different authors. So as I have been reading Japanese authors throughout this year and last year, I've been reading the chapters, the biographical and literary, synopsis and analysis of those particular authors, and that's been incredibly beneficial to increase my understanding and appreciation of those authors. So I've read the chapters in here about Junichiro Tanizaki, Yasunari Kawabata, Yukio Mishima. One more that I read, who was that? Why can't I remember that right? I think I marked it in here. Where is it? Osamu Dazai, of course, because I read No Longer Human. So this is, if you're interested in Japanese literature, this is an absolute must-read. It's from the 80s. This one is an old library discard. It's notoriously difficult to get, and is rather expensive. There's a paperback on Amazon. I think it's some print on demand sort of thing, but even that costs like $50 or $60. I got this one used, um, in good condition on library. If you want to pick it up on eBay, I think it's like $150 $200. But maybe if you are in America, or yeah, probably only in America, maybe your library has this one, so you can borrow it, and then you just have to somehow get through it in a month. But yeah, even though I bought it as an ex-library book, it was still not cheap with shipping and stuff, because it's a monster. So, but that's what I'll be doing in the month of May. So I'm still pretty excited about this. I'm not sure it's going to be able to sort of top my April experience, but I have some quite good stuff here, and I'm loving Jane Eyre. I really am. And let's see, maybe it'll get, maybe it'll blow me completely away in the last 2/3. But nonetheless, I'm not expecting every book I read to be a 5-star book. Obviously, that's not possible. When I start a book, I'm actually hoping for a 4-star book. Like, that's, for me a 3-star book is a book I really like, but which perhaps didn't wow me, and which I can see some problems with. I find some problematic things with. Could be anything really, but you know, something which I think is good but not great. 4 stars is great. It's a great book, and that's what I'm hoping. I'm not hoping or expecting a 5-star novel when I start reading. I'm hoping for a 4-star, and if it's a 3-star, I'm fairly, content. That means it hasn't been a bad read at all. But yeah, that's it. Tell me in the comments what you are reading right now and what you will be reading in May. Thank you. See you.